Alright, well good morning. Today we're going to start working on the neck of the guitar, and I've got things set up here. I've already got my neck laid out. I've drawn my cut line and a couple of lines to help guide my saw. This is a nice Spanish cedar neck blank. I've already trimmed some of the excess off the end that I can use for the heel block, and we're just going to get this clamped up and sawn. Now, you don't have to use a real fancy saw for this. A good cross cut will work just fine. This is what I've got. This is from a hardware store. The trick is, though, to get it clamped up in such a manner that your saw does not hit your clamps, and that you can get a good angle on this and keep this blade good and upright. And you can use, so I'll go ahead and get it clamped and then we'll get the using part here. My favorite way to do this is just right on the bench top. It's probably why I have so many marks in the bench top that I don't really have to have here, but there we go. Now we're not going to move. We're good and stuck. We just need something to help us keep our blade angle correct. So I'm going to find a piece of scrap. I don't need anything else other than that, I don't think. Sometimes you can use a little angle guide. So what I basically do is I set it right up against my line. And this is just a scrap with a straight side on it. It just has to be straight enough to go up next to your line. And then we just kind of take a couple of back saws here, just get our line sort of established. And then we keep our saw straight. Occasionally checking to make sure we've got our line. Get that scrap up next to it. Keep your saw level. You keep it level as you go down. Just continue to check your lines. And at a certain point, your saw will be following your guide. You will not need that. Before you know it, you have a headstock for your neck. Now, there will be some adjustment here. Two things I will need to do. So my saw wandered just a little bit. That's to be expected. So what I will do is go ahead and get a thickness on my headstock, which I'll do that with a saw. Try and measure my line here, and then we will, at that point, I'll set it up here like this, and we'll plane those flat, get my jointed edge the way I need it, and we'll move on from there. So, alright. Now my headstock piece really needs to be about 20 millimeters to start. So I measure here. If I move back a little bit, you can probably see me a little better. I'm measuring from the bottom of what will be my headstock to the top. 20 millimeters is too big, but that allows me to plane both sides. And I just need a line. Just like that. But once I've got an established marked line, I can then mark around, because this is surfaced a couple of sides here. I'm going to be in the ballpark. Now, set this in a vise. Definitely take that amount off and move on. So we're going to take a little break for a second while I get this set up. Alright, I've got our headstock piece set up in the vise. Same clamping method. You can use ducktail saw if you want to. I'm going to use the same crosscut that I had because it'll be just fine. Usually I would say use a ripping saw. But I don't have one that's going to be small enough for this particular application and do what I need it to do. So we're going to use this saw. You could also use a bow saw, but we're not there. So we get our corner, make sure we're good and clamped in. We've got to get a line established. It's kind of moving on me, so let's see if I can do this. I'll go ahead and set it in a little sideways, come down on it. The idea here is to follow your line all the way around. Got it started. Turn my piece of wood around. Actually, let's put it on this side like that so I can keep it consistent. Alternatively, you could plane this off. It would work just as well. I'm going with this method because I think it's going to be better for me. I can use this extra piece for some other things. Now that I have my line established all the way around, carefully come through and saw out the middle. I would have clamped that tighter in my vise, except that I'm trying not to ruin by putting too many marks in the back side of this headstock. I want it to be as pristine as possible. And I have my extra chunk here, put that aside. Now I can clean up those pieces. So let me get this out of the way and we'll get to a point where I can clean up those pieces for the neck and get them glued together.